Wally Dallenbach Jr. has already wrapped up the Trans Am Championship for 1986. His father, Wally Dallenbach Sr., is a former IndyCar driver and is now the chief steward for championship auto racing teams. Earlier, we had a chance to talk with Wally Dallenbach Jr.
Wally.
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you so much for joining us for Talks with Tony. So first and foremost, is family okay? Everybody healthy? Are you guys outside of boredom? Are you dealing with COVID-19 okay?
Yeah, we're pretty much good. I'm down here in New Smyrna, Florida, and you know, you kind of you climb the walls a little bit just because of you can't go to restaurants, you can't do the stuff we usually do. But I've got some property that's about 15 minutes from here, so I spend a lot of time out there with my machete, clearing trails and stuff like that. So it keeps me pretty busy.
A lot of this is more to do with your people getting to know a side of you that maybe they not just the race car driver, but growing up, having the dad that you had with such a legend in the sport. Did you have pressure to go racing? Did dad drive you to go racing? Did you want to go racing? How?
Well, we grew up going to IndyCar races, my brother and my sister and I. So, we were around it a lot. And back then, the month of May, it was the month of May for IndyCar. So we would spend the whole month of May in Indianapolis. My dad was a race car driver. It was kind of like we were around it so much, I thought everybody's dad was a race car driver, So I think really, we had a lot of fun growing up around racing. And, I think when my dad became the chief steward, I really started seeing the respect that he had from, the competitors, drivers, owners, everybody. And it sunk in a little bit more as I got older. As far as, any pressure, absolutely not. I mean, when you grow up around something, you certainly want to give it a try. And, when I got my first race car, I fell in love with it. I mean, okay, I said, maybe this is something I can do. There's no guarantees for sure. So I just progressively went up the ladder, and did a series and then moved on and moved on and moved on. And I was very fortunate, Tony. I mean, back when I came up through the sport, it's totally different than it is now because of the factory involvement in road racing. The factories were looking for young drivers, and I was at the right place at the right time. And I became a factory driver. The first really factory effort was with Dan Gurney's Toyota team in the IMSA GTU series. And so there was always opportunities for young drivers back then. But to me, there was absolutely no pressure. I think the advantage that I had getting into the sport more than anything was it wasn't a fairy tale. I knew there was a lot more lows than there were highs in the business. And I think that prepared me mentally, to try to pursue this as a career.
How did you, you're legend in Trans Am, you ran with Roush, you were Willy's teammate, you're Rookie of the Year, won 2 championships.
But his teammate Wally Dallenbach Jr. would take the title, making Wally the youngest Trans Am champion ever at the age of 22.
How did that all come about? I mean, I hear you say Gurney and the Toyota how'd the door open for you as a road racer? I mean, you've done it all, road racing.
I was running NASCAR modifieds on the East Coast in 81 and I think 82. The first opportunity I got to go road racing was actually in what was called the VW Rabbit Cup. And a good friend of mine and the family's who's helped me out in my career a lot was a guy named Eddie Walks, and he had a team. So that's how I first got into road racing, was in a VW Rabbit. And it was a great series. I mean, there was a lot of really good drivers in the series. It was, the packs were tight all the time. And then I got invited to a tryout, as Willy did, with Gurney. We went out to Willow Springs, and there was, 10, 12 drivers, and we all got to drive the GTU car. And I was one of the guys selected to run the whole year. And, we won a couple races. We had some success there. And then after 83, I was kind of looking for something to do. And Eddie Walks said, hey, I got 2 rides lined up with Gordy Oftedal on the Trans Am series. And it was at Riverside and the Caesars Palace race. And when I got in the Trans Am car, that was it. I knew what I wanted to do. I just fell in love with those cars and that racing. It was just balls to the wall from the green to the checkered, no pit stops, no strategy. You just go. And that was really that's where road racing really hooked me. I think when I first got in a Trans Am car with that horsepower, slide those cars around, that was for me, for sure.
All right, so you're a teammate of Willy's, you're running for Roush, and I did a little homework before I called you. Some of the stuff I can't even ask you that Willy talked about.
Good. I won't answer.
This is a G-rated interview. But one of the things he shared with me, he said, ask Wally about Arizona, from the hotel to the racetrack.
Willy and I should be sailing a jail cell. I mean, there were some, that was just not the one, that wasn't a one-time deal. This went on a long time, but we used to get in our rental cars, and some of the best races that Willy and I ever had were to and from the racetrack, not on the racetrack. And I mean, it got out of hand. You know, we were young and dumb and you know, having fun, but we got carried away sometimes. I mean, it was scary. Yeah.
I mean, you're a road course ringer, no question. How'd you make the adjustment to NASCAR, and how did that come to be?
I ran the IROC series. I believe it was in '87, and really, I loved it. You know, I loved the ovals, and I'm like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Now, when I got my first Cup car and went around the racetrack, it was not like an IROC car. It was like, oh, what did I get myself into? And how it came about was because I was a Ford driver, and you know, I had run the IMSA series in the GTO cars, and I was driving for Roush, and I think Ford said, hey, would you like to try out a Cup car? I'm like, yeah, sure, of course. So they struck a deal with Junie Dunleavy, and my first Cup race was at Road Atlanta. And again, Ford was looking for, you know, some young drivers to bring in the series. So I went NASCAR racing because it was an opportunity. There were no opportunities for me in IndyCar. So after running some races with Junie, Jack put a deal together with Keystone Beer to be a teammate with Mark Martin. And that was how I got into the Cup Series. But it was just it was a different, because that wasn't my background. I didn't understand the cars as much as the guys I was racing with. You know, the Trans Am car, you know, I could tell you exactly what it needed and what I needed. But in a Cup car, I was lost. So it was a steep learning curve for me to understand how to drive these cars. Biggest problem I had with driving a Cup car, say at Atlanta or somewhere like that, where we weren't running flat at the time, I just go down in there like a road course car and go as deep as I possibly could. And then I would jump on the throttle and, you know, use too much brake, and it would upset the car. And it took me a long time to get through this thick skull to just roll out of the throttle and let the car, you know, coast in and then pick up the throttle. So I did it wrong for a long time. It's, you know, it's a very, you know, it's tough. Those guys are all good and they all belong there. If they got there, they all belong there. So it was difficult, but my love was road racing. And that was what I liked best. And that's what I was more comfortable with. You know, I love my time in NASCAR, and, you know, it's, you're in a different world because you're running every weekend for 30 some weeks. And it's almost like there's no life outside of that.
You ran an IROC, and last year you are the VROC champion, partnering with John Cloud. First and foremost, tried to pattern VROC after the IROC series. To me, growing up, seeing all you guys, all the best of the best, competing in IROC, and we don't have the sponsorship. We don't have the exact prepared cars. It's a little bit different ballgame, but it's American muscle.
Hey, look,
that's together. It's fun.
But IROC, I'll tell you on the IROC thing, Tony, don't think they were all equally prepared. You could have 12 cars out there, and if one's got 5 or 10 more horsepower, guess what? They're gone. So it's almost impossible to do that.
How was riding in the IROC? Was that is such a badge of honor to be, 12 of the best in the world get pulled together for one-shot deal and for that season.
The white car, Wally Dallenbach Jr. at age 23 is racing today in a stock-type car on a high-banked oval superspeedway for the very first time in his life. And some of the stock car drivers were interested to see exactly how he'd handle that. But right now, Dallenbach is hanging in there in good position, managing to maintain his speed. As you see car number 5, Bill Elliott, pulling up behind him to catch the draft. And now Mario Andretti is moving up in car number 22. So Andretti has made the most definite early move as he tries to take an inside line and now pulls in behind Bill Elliott.
Running at Daytona, it was our first race in the IROC series, and I remember I'm out there with the Cup guys like Bonnet and that, and I'm going down in a turn one, and we're side by side and 3 abreast, and I'm like, holy cow. These are guys I listened to and watched, growing up. And I was very impressed with, what they could do and how well they did it. And it was like, man, I've got a lot to learn, but I'm here with the best guys in the world to learn how to do this. So the IROC was special. And, we had a really good shot of winning that thing. I think I was second in points going into the last race, which happened to be Watkins Glen.
Well, Jackie, my strategy is for me to win this championship. If Bodine and Al finish this race, I'm going to have to win and also lead the most laps.
They threw the green flag, and we had a tire go down. So I had to come in the pits and change it. Still finished 3rd or 4th in the series, but we had a legitimate shot to win that, which would have been really, really nice. But
oh my God,
it was special. Like you said, just being asked to do that is a badge of honor.
It's funny, the relationships that have been built between the amateur driver and the pro driver in the VROC series is amazing. I mean, John Cloud and Debbie Cloud race with us, as you know. And John's approach to this is really simple. Tony, I'd like to enter the VROC race, and I'll take any driver you want as long as it's Wally. I mean, it's like there's a clear respect and friendship that's evolved from this. But it was funny. I was preparing again for the interview, and I said, John, give me something about Wally, that what's brought you two together like this. And he told me a pretty cool story. He said that Tony's the most humble guy. He's been on the biggest stage in auto racing. He told me a story about there was a guy that came up to you and he says, I know you. I can't place where I've met you. And the guy, he probably was running through his head NASCAR. Maybe it hurt your dad. Maybe it was Trans Am. Maybe it was all the years and years of TV coverage. You're one of the top analysts in motorsports. And a few minutes later, the guy comes back and he says, I got it. I know where I've seen you. I've seen you at Walmart. You work at Walmart, don't you?
That's a true story. That's a true story. And where all that came from is, I didn't get into this business to be famous, or if I walk in a restaurant, I don't want to be recognized. I like staying underneath the radar. And the funny thing about that story is that that's when you don't say, oh, I'm Wally Dallenbach, I'm a race car driver. And he would have went, no, that's not it. And then you feel like a real knucklehead. So,
all right. Every person I've talked to, I ask this question because there's always a top 5. NASCAR drivers, Trans Am drivers do more pushing and shoving than open wheel drivers do. Who got under your skin as a driver? Is there anybody still you say, I just can't even be around them because they just got me so aggravated? You got one of or two of those guys?
Well, I definitely, there's actually 2, but when I was running, you had guys like, Hallsmer and Pruitt and Brassfield, Elliott Ford Robinson, Willy T. Libbs, Tom Gloy, Newman. You had had a lot of guys that were really good. I think Pruitt and I were probably, we did not like each other. It was just two different styles or two different backgrounds. And Scott and I were not the best of buddies. And when we got on the racetrack, we probably hated each other's guts more than any other driver out there. I've got a tremendous amount of respect for him. And now that we're not racing each other, you know, it's like everything else, you know. If we see each other at the racetrack, we definitely start walking towards each other and start talking. But I had a lot of respect for him. Another guy was Stuck, Hans Stuck. And it was, you know, probably more in IMSA than in Trans Am that I raced against him. But again, tremendous amount of respect for his driving. But when him and I were on the racetrack together, there was always contact, you know, some way or another. And, you know, you had a lot of guys like, you know, Willie and Hosmer and Brassfield and stuff that you could race these guys hard. You could race them hard. We're going to hit each other. We're going to tap, you know, not take each other out, but we're going to be leaning on each other. I miss that. I miss that racing. I mean, I really do. That back then was fun. Those cars were fast, and there was a lot of good drivers in the series, and it was really what racing is all about.
How do you want to be remembered? There goes Wally Dallenbach Jr. He's fill in the blank.
You know, if anything, just that he was a hard racer. You know, it's hard. That's a good question. I've never really thought about it. You know, I think it's if you talk to competitors and you're thrown in that list, whoever you're talking about is, hey, one of the hardest racers I ever raced against was, you know, Wally D. You know, then that would be enough for me. Yeah, I think just be known as a good hard racer.
Well, we first of all, thanks for taking the time with me to do this. Stay safe, but we'll get back to normal. This like everything, we'll get through this chapter. So I'll see you out at the racetrack, and
I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for doing this, Well. It's always good to see you.
No, I appreciate everything you do, Tony. I mean, you really have turned this whole thing around, SVRA and the VROC and everything, Trans Am. You're doing a great job, and you deserve a lot of credit for where this thing is headed. So you think outside the box, which is what you got to do these days. So I am just so proud to be a part of all of this. I'm having a blast.
Well, it's good to see you, my friend. We'll do this again soon.
Wally's World! Wally's World! IndyCar! Excellent! Wally's World! Wally's World! Wally's World!
Well, welcome to Long Beach, everybody. I am sitting behind one of the best IndyCar drivers